Windward is an action-adventure RPG that is currently available on Steam for early access. And in this tutorial I'm going to explain how to install mods for it and later how to actually create new ones. So first, the absolute basics, how to install mods. I'm going to start from scratch here and get rid of this folder. You will want to navigate to Documents, Windward folder. Inside this folder you will find your worlds, your player files, fog of war, and so on and so forth. What you will want to do is create a new folder here called mods. Inside this folder is where you will be extracting all the mods. So here I have a new mod that adds the German translation, for example. So all I do is just simply extract it, and that's it. Now this mod, it only contains one file, but it is still usable, and you can actually test it inside your game. To test the mods, simply run Windward. Once I launch Windward, the mods automatically get loaded and everything is usable right away. So here, for example, I have the German localization available and fully usable. This means that I have installed everything correctly. Alright, so say you want to create your own mod. How do you do that? Well, the process is actually fairly similar. Once you have the Windward mods folder, just create a new folder inside of it for your new mod. Let's call it first mod. All your content is going to go here. Of course you can create subfolders if you like and organize it, but you don't have to. First step you should probably go for is to download the example mod from the.sharon.com. This mod is not a mod per se, it simply contains two files, configuration and localization. Simply extract them into your first mod folder. Configuration actually contains data, configuration data for the entire game. And there's a lot of content here. You can actually skim through it if you want, examine it, see what's there. But you don't have to include all of it when you modify something. Say, for example, I wanted to modify the starting ship. This is the starting ship. I can delete everything except the ship itself. Just leave it as is. Say, for example, I wanted to give it a lot more hit points. A lot more hit points. The values here are multipliers, by the way. 1 means 100%, so 10 means, you guessed it, 1000%. That's going to be very beefy. Alright, let's simply save this file and give it a try. As previously, I'm simply launching Windward. I'm going to give it a try. I'll create a new player and a new world as well, just to be on the safe side. Everything is what you're used to. I will create a world with normal difficulty, and there we go. So, here's my new ship. Look at that, 960 hull to start with 24,000 hit points. This is obviously way more than it should have. But hey, that's the power of modding. You can change whatever you like. To modify the game's text, whether to add your own translation or simply modify what's there, you will want to open up the localization.csv file, either with Notepad or Excel if you have it, or Google Docs. It is available on Google Docs as well. So this is what it looks like inside, and it's basically just a key and value pair. It's very simple. If, for example, I wanted to create a new language, say calling it, I don't know, Russian, as an example, I would just change the English to Russian and save it as is. I can then translate all of these values one at a time at my own pace. Of course, same as before, in order to test it, just launch Windward and it should get picked up right away. And the Russian language, there we go, it should be available for you to use. Simple enough, right? Well, that's all fine and dandy, but what about creating custom content, like actual custom content, such as new quests or items? Well, for that you will need to know some coding. If you know C# and Unity in particular, you are off to a good start. And I will show you exactly how to do that. Let's start by creating a new project in Visual Studio, or if you're on a Mac, you will have to use MongoDevelop. It's really up to you what to use. The instructions for how to get it all set up, I actually picked them up from Kerbal Space Program of all things. They have really good documentation for these things. Here's, for example, is how you set up MongoDevelop, and here is how you set up Visual Studio. But I'll go through the Visual Studio part for you here. I'm going to start up Visual Studio 2010. And I will create a new project. So what you want to go with is the class library, C# class library. And for where you want to create it, well, the obvious location for it would be inside Steam Apps, Common Windward, because that's where the DLLs are. But I'm just gonna create it in the Documents folder instead, because then my DLLs are, my compiled DLLs are going to be in the right place, and the game will pick them up right away without me having to move them anywhere. It's a little bit more convenient. Anyway, mods, first mod, and this is where I will create it. I will not be creating a solution name because that's the name of the project itself, and I will call it first mod, just like this. So there we go. Now I have a new solution called first mod. Of course it created a subfolder for me, but that's irrelevant, that's fine. By default, you're not going to be able to access any of the game's code, but you can fix that. In the Solution Explorer, there's the References section here. You're not going to need XML, link, data extensions, pretty much any of this stuff really. I'm just going to remove it. You are going to need system and core. I'm not sure about system data. We'll get to that a bit later. But what you will want to do is right-click the references and add a new reference. And currently I have this listed in the recent section, but you probably will not. You will want to find the Windward folder for Steam, and inside of it there is a Windward data, managed, and so on and so forth. Let me just go through the steps manually. So here's the D, program files, Steam, Steam apps, common, Windward. There we go. Inside Windward are these files. You will want to go inside Windward data and then inside managed. And here there's a bunch of DLLs. What you will want to do is select the assembly C# DLL, which is the main DLL contained in the game's data, and also Unity Engine DLL. That is the game engine code. So with these two files selected, click OK, and they will be added for you. Unity Engine and assembly C#. Now that they are here, you can actually access Windward's code. Let's give that a try. -rn, and there we go. There's a bunch of stuff in here. So obviously the linking part worked correctly. Okay, so now that everything is set up, let's do some coding. I'm gonna get rid of all of these and start from scratch using Unity Engine. If you are familiar with Unity, you are off to a great start here, and you probably know all this anyways. Using -rn for more game-centric code. And now I'm going to create a new class. I'm going to call this class first mod, and I'm going to derive it from mono behavior. Deriving from mono behavior is fairly common practice for any Unity developer. Anything that can be attached to a game object inside a game has to be derived from a mono behavior. So here I've got a script called firstMod. I'll probably also want to rename the file as well though. This way the name of the file matches the name of the class. Fairly important thing to have. So here we've got a basic class and it doesn't actually do anything inside. Let's make it do something. By default, because this class is called firstMod and the name of the mod is also firstMod, this class is going to be instantiated right away and it will be there in the game and its code will be running at all times. It's useful to have if you want to have something just running in the background. Okay, how about we make it print something? I'm going to create a start function. Resolve by using system collections. Inside this start function, I'm going to do a simple for loop. So this loop right here will simply execute once per second. What can I do? How about print some text? To print text in the game, you can actually, you've got several things here. You can print to the chat window, for example, which would be in UI game chat, like this. You can also print to the status bar, like this. And you can even print text above, say, the player, for example. My player, if my player is there, I'm going to add some text. So here we go. 3 ways of displaying text: through the game chat, through the status bar, and through the player. Let's test out, why not? Why not just test out all of them at the same time? What I will want to do is change to release here and build the solution. Here it has created the DLL for me and placed it somewhere within the same folder, which is here, bin, anyway, in release. Point is, it is within the same Windward mods firstMod subfolder. Let's see if it works. Actually, wait a second, there is one important step I completely forgot. I need to go to the properties of the project and I need to change it to be using Net Framework 3.5 instead of 4 by default. Change it to yes and recompile. And there we go. Now it should be usable. Let's give it a try. So Windward, start it up, and not, oh wait, there it is. Hello there. So this is showing up. This is a status bar here. Let's go into the actual game. And in the game, here's text showing up in the chat window and of course above the player's head as well, and on the status bar. So there we go. There's a mod that is talking to the player. Okay, how about we take this one step further and make an actual brand new quest? Making a quest is also fairly straightforward. You don't actually need this file, firstMod file, so I'm gonna just repurpose it for something else. I'm still gonna use the same Unity engine, but I'm gonna call it something else. The reason for that is, as I mentioned, firstMod, which is matching the name of the mod, is going to be attached to a game object within the game right away, and I don't want this. I instead want to create a quest. So same thing, public class quest first mod is what I'm going to call it, and I'm going to make it be derived from quest instead of mono behavior. So since this name does not match the name of the mod, I'm fine. So what can I do? How about a quest where the player is asked to crash their boat into the shore, and that'll get some experience to the player. How about that? To detect collisions in the game, you create a void on collision enter. Again, if you're familiar with Unity, you're going to be familiar with this. This is just straight up Unity code right there. Inside, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check if this is the player and do something. Now, what I'm doing here is munit here. This value belongs to the quest itself. When any quest is created in the world, it is typically attached to something, something being the player in this case. So when the player owns a quest, they have a script attached to them. This script is going to be attached to that player. So here I'm checking if this player owns this quest. What I'm going to do is complete the quest. So collision with terrain. If collision collider get component terrain is there, then I'm going to complete the quest. There we go. So this quest, oh, and I should probably rename the file as well. I'm going to call this quest first mod as well to make it match the class name. So quest first mod, again, of course, compile it. Everything is fine, no errors, and it should be usable. But by default, this quest is not going to be available anywhere. Reason being is it's not a part of the configuration file. Let's add it to the configuration file. But first, let's have a look at what they are supposed to look like. So here, if you look at the existing configuration file that we have downloaded earlier in this tutorial, it has all kinds of information in it, including quests at the very bottom. Here, you've got the quest section, and inside of it, there's quest discover, quest trade, quest delivery, and so on and so forth. What you want to do is take one of these and move them to where we were. So here I'm going to get rid of this modified ship section because I don't need it anymore, but I am going to keep the root, of course, and it is very important to keep the same hierarchy. So root quest, quest discover, I'm going to change this to be my new quest, which is supposed to be called quest first mod. So there. Now there is a new quest referenced in the game, and it is referencing the name of the script directly. So this name is supposed to match this name. Simple enough, right? So here you specify the minimum size for this quest as town-wise. So this requires a town size of 1, meaning it's going to be available on any town. This is the size of the reward you're going to get for completing the quest. How much experience you're going to get for completing it. This is the base value, by the way. It is scaled by the challenge level. So as the challenge level rises, this value is going to be automatically scaled. Same with the reward, by the way. So this is the icon that the item for this quest will use. And I'm just going to leave it as the same exact values for everything. Cooldown is not used anymore. I should probably get rid of that. Target is the target for the town. Target for the target of the quest. So in this case, this was the discovery quest, so it was asking for a hidden town as the target. I really don't care. I'm not going to have a target. Faction, this is the faction that is supposed to get a bonus from this quest. Again, not going to have anything. So here is a completely basic quest. It has a minimum size of 1, it gives a small reward, a small bit of experience, and it's got a basic icon. Alright, so if I was to actually launch this as is, I would get errors, because there is one more step missing. So the configuration file is what makes the game reference the quest. The code for the quest is what is going to be executed in the game. But there is one more thing missing, the text for the quest. Now the text for the quest is actually specified in the localization file. So I'm going to open up the localization file, change this back to English as to make it usable, and I'm just going to delete everything here, except perhaps one of the quests, just to use it as an example. Let's see if I can find one here. There we go. So here we are. I've got one of the quests. So here's the structure for it. This is the name of the quest. So again, since the name of the quest is supposed to be quest first mod, I'm gonna rename it first mod, quest first mod everywhere. This is the name of the quest. So I'm gonna call it first modded quest. For the information, this is a description that will show up when the player clicks on the quest, and there's a window that's going to show up. Well, this is what will be in the window. I'm going to type something else like, hey, how about you crash your boat into the shore? Eh? Alright, so for the item name, this is the item. When the player accepts the quest, they're going to be given an item. So crash order is what it's going to be called. And for the description of the item, you can type something or just leave it blank. I'll type something just to be complete. Here we go. So we've got the localization file containing the text for this quest. We've got the configuration file containing the rewards, as well as referencing the script. And of course, we have the code for the quest itself. Again, make sure it's all compiled, and let's run the game. Of course, chances of this quest appearing are rather slim. Reason being is every town has a limited number of quests. So will this quest appear? Probably not. Not in this case. So I'm going to go to a different town and see if I can find it. Alright, so here I am in luck. There's this quest showing up. First modded quest. I click it, I get the description for it, and I can accept it. Now that I have accepted the quest, I've got a task to crash my boat into the shore. So how about I just do that? Bam! Crashed it, I got the reward, quest is complete. There we go, there's a brand new quest. So how about we take this a little bit further? Instead of just giving a player a monetary reward, how about we give a player an item instead? To do that, you override the onComplete function. In this function, you get an indicator for whether the quest completed successfully or if it failed. And you can do something inside of it. For example, something like this. If the quest completes successfully and this is the player, create a new item. Give this item a name, give it some information, gold, and give it some salvage. Salvage is obviously right-click, salvage for a little bit of wood. And lastly, give this item to the player. Player add item. That's all it takes. Although ideally what you want to do is use localization in this case. So these strings should be localized. Of course, again, instead of something like this, I'm going to call it quest first mod 0 and quest first mod 1. Now I go into the localization file again and add these strings. Quest first mod 0, first quest reward, quest first mod 1, first description of the quest reward. If you happen to have commas in your text, make sure to wrap it in quotes. Of course, if you use Excel or Google Docs, it'll be done for you automatically. Anyway, so we've got two of these strings here in the localization file. We've got item here that uses them, and let's give it a try. Compile. A warning message. Microsoft C#. Apparently this is not necessary. Alright, let's get rid of it. Compile again. Alright. Windward. Start it up. Same as usual. And continue playing. Let's see if this quest actually shows up again, or if I have to hunt for it. Yeah, I gotta hunt for it, or just reset it. Alright, so quick reload later, and there's the quest, first modded quest. I accept it, and I run into the shore again. Boom! First quest reward, item granted. First quest reward, first description of the quest reward, and I can right click and salvage it. There we go, now there is a quest that gives an item as a reward. Alright, so now that we have this shiny new mod, it's time to distribute it to other players. Well, to do that, you need all the files that were used by the mod. In this case, it was the localization file, the configuration file, and the DLL. The DLL is actually hidden in here in bin release firstmod.dll. Now the reason it's here is because I have it set to release, so it goes into the release folder by default. Anyway, I'm going to copy this and I'm gonna go up several levels back up to where my config and localization were, and I'll just paste it here. So now I've got 3 of these files, and I can actually get rid of this and create a zip out of it. So I'll just go ahead and do that. Send it to the zip, and I'll get rid of this folder because it's not needed. So there we go, a complete mod file that has all the files necessary and can be distributed to other players. Of course, you can have more or less files depending on what you have in there. So if you had custom models, for example, they would also go in here. And just so you know, there is documentation available for, well, I would say most of the classes in the game. It is at stasharon.com/windward/docs, and you can find some, well, most of the classes that are used in the game. So for example, a quest, right? Quest is an abstract attachable component that references an entry, blah blah blah. And it actually gives you a hierarchy of classes that are using it as well. So quest colonist, for example, is also using a quest. Quest raid, quest small boss, and so on and so forth. So it's a very useful thing to check if you're familiar with coding. But of course the best way to learn is to just try doing something. And if you cannot figure something out, or if something is not working right, just make a post on the forums. Keep in mind, Windward is an early access, and this modding feature is even earlier than that. So there are bound to be some rough edges that need to be ironed out before the release. Make a post, and I'll help you out. Thanks for watching, and happy modding!